Hi, I'm Scott Salzman, Web Discovery Librarian at Furman University.
And I'm Christy Allen, Assistant Director for Discovery Services at Furman University.
In this video, we're going to share some basic, straightforward tips on creating accessible web pages. We've chosen to demonstrate these authoring practices using WordPress because it's a common platform with a visual editor that works similarly to other web platforms. These authoring practices are very easy to adopt and will help avoid common accessibility barriers.
In WordPress's visual editor, I'm going to begin by entering text that I want to be a heading. I'm going to call it Getting Started with Web Accessibility. To make this a heading, I'm going to highlight the text and then go to the Styles drop-down menu and select the appropriate heading level. Please note that you should never use a Level 1 heading. That level is usually reserved for the web page title. I'm going to start with a Level 2 heading for our content. I'm going to go ahead and add a subheading underneath this one. I'll call it Specific Authoring Tips and make it a Level 3 heading. This will define a nice, meaningful hierarchy for our page.
Now I'm going to add a list of tips. If I didn't care about accessibility, I might do something like this. That sort of looks like a list, but structurally it's just a bunch of short paragraphs, so screen reader software has no way of knowing that it's a list. To structure this as a list, I would highlight the text and use the bulleted list tool. Doing this also makes it easier for users to visually scan this text and see the relationships between these items. By making this page more accessible, we've also made it more usable. Notice that there's another way to format lists. I'm going to click on the numbered list icon, which turns the bullets into numbers. If the order of items in the list were important, it would be important for me to structure it as a numbered list. Then screen readers could convey the sequence to the user. Since our list is in no particular order, I'm going to change it back to a bulleted list.
Now let's talk about links. I want to add the text, "There are good screen readers available for all major operating systems." And I want it to link to information about screen readers. Often, to add a link, people will add another sentence saying, "Click here," and use that as the link text. That makes it difficult to tell where the links go, and also makes it difficult for screen reader users to differentiate between links. A more meaningful way to construct link text would be to use the relevant terms as the link, which in this example is screen readers. This makes it obvious that the link points to information about screen readers.
Now let's talk about images. It's important to provide a meaningful text alternative to any non-text content, such as images, so that screen reader users can receive equivalent information. One of the ways to do this is via the alt text image attribute. A good rule of thumb when choosing alternative text is to imagine that you are trying to describe the image to someone who couldn't see it in the context of the web page. Now I'm going to insert an image into this page. On the right is a list of the image's properties, and one of these properties is alt text. This image is illustrating the semantic meaning of structural page elements, so I'm going to use structural elements impart meaning for its alternative text. Now this image will be accessible to people who use a screen reader. Let's take a look at one of the images in our accessible example page. Since the purpose of this icon image is purely decorative, and it adds no useful information to this page, we left its alt text field blank. This tells a screen reader to completely ignore that image. There's no point in having a screen reader announce that there is an unimportant image present on the page.
There are a number of nuances to the use of alternative text, particularly for complex images like graphs or charts. We've added a link in the description of this video to a great resource for alternative image text.
Finally, let's talk a bit about color contrast. or the contrast between a background color and text color. We recommend using the WAVE Web Accessibility Evaluation tool to check color contrast. This tool conducts an accessibility evaluation of the entire web page, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're interested in using it to evaluate color contrast. I'm going to go to the WAVE tool and paste in the address of our inaccessible example web page. We have a link to the WAVE tool in the description of this video. Now I'm going to click on the Contrast tab in the WAVE tool's left navigation pane, and it tells me that there are 2 contrast errors. If I click on the first red icon, the WAVE tool will show me where on the page this contrast error occurred. The first contrast error is in this link text. Light orange text on a white background is difficult for most people to read, so the WAVE tool identified this as a contrast failure. I'm going to use this link in the WAVE tool to find a foreground color that will provide adequate contrast against its background. Since applying this new color to your web page can get a little tricky, we've provided a link in this video's description to a resource that goes into detail about resolving color contrast issues.
In this video, we've looked at 4 basic tips for making your web pages more accessible. Using structural elements like headings and lists, using meaningful link text, providing alternative text for images, and using adequate color contrast. This only scratches the surface of web accessibility, but these tips address very common issues and barriers. Adopting them into your web authoring process is an easy way to have a big impact on the accessibility of your web pages.